Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Radio Bravo.
Radio Bravo station, go ahead.
How you doing, Jim? This is Bob in Wisconsin.
Howdy doody, Bob in Wisconsin. How's it going up that way?
Going okay. Been listening to you guys talk, and it's been interesting. I don't know if I have a little bit of RF. I've kind of moved the shack around a little bit and trying to get things fixed up again. We had a flood down here, and we had 4 inches of water, and it took my tower computer, but we're getting back up and running, okay?
Roger, Roger. I'm so sorry to hear that. There's nothing more discouraging than a flooded situation there, particularly water in the radio room, the radio shack. Not a good situation there, and I'm glad to hear you coming back. The thing is, possibly, if you might have AF and the RF, would be to sync a few grounds. I have 3 grounds. I'm not... I'm not, unhappy to say I do have 3 grounds. I have one ground that is strictly for the HF side, and then I have 2 other grounds that are tied together for the rest of the shack. Because I just couldn't imagine running my audio preamp ground to the same ground that I have my HF amp. My Heathkit SB220 at a KW on the same ground with my mic preamp. Roger?
Hey, roger that. I have separate circuits going to the amp and separate circuit for the radio. But I'm running a 102-foot doublet off the 450-ohm ladder line. And RF is come and gone. And I think I'm okay right now, but I'm not exactly sure why. Listening to you guys is interesting. I've been a general for probably almost 2 years now. And how's this station sounding out there?
It sounds good, sir. Sounds good. You know, we do not have the best conditions in the world. What kind of power are you running?
Running about 600 watts. I'm running a TS590SG off of a AL811, and I'm using the tuner. Okay. I guess you figured that one out with the doublet.
Roger, I cover you at about 8 dB above my noise level, so it's a pretty good signal. Now that's max, and you have faded down from time to time, but that last transmission you were 8 dB above my noise level.
Hey, okay, yep, you're running about 8 to 9 dB here too, and you're sounding real good, and I've heard you out there before.
Roger, Roger. Well, thanks for the check there, and I think you're doing great for the comeback. Again, on that ground system, some folks run that copper pipe down the back of the desk. And the problem is with that if you have a 6-foot desk and you run that copper pipe, you have a 6-foot ground differential between the one end of the pipe to the other end of the pipe. And, I prefer to use what's called a spider connection, and that is I take all of my grounds to exactly the same place, and I use what's called a split bolt, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a bolt that has a split in it with a nut, and you put all these wires in there and you tighten the nut. Now I have a big one because my ground cables from all of my radios and stuff, I'm using RG8. Now, we're talking about an RF ground, not an AC power amp ground, but an RF ground. So for RF, a piece of RG8 looks like about a 1/2-inch copper pipe. So I use this RG8, and I have end connectors that fasten to the radio, and then down at the bottom I shave back about 3 inches on the RG8, put them all together on a split bolt, tighten it up, and so I have an absolute zero space connection for mass connection for all of my cables. There is no 6-foot difference between one cable and the other. They're all at the same place at the same time. Roger?
Hey, roger that. Yeah, I'm running a split bolt, but I'm only running 12-gauge wire, so that might be part of the problem. The run isn't very long. It's probably about 8 feet maybe. Are you hearing any buzz on that end at all?
No, audio is clean. Audio is clean. Yeah, if you can find a piece of old RG8 and just, they have, I think at Home Depot, they have end caps, which, you know, you can put you trim out about a ½ inch of the RG8, put it inside this connector, then tighten it down with it has a little screw adjustment, you know, and then it has a flange with a hole in it that you can easily attach it to your ground position on your radio. Roger?
Hey, Roger that. Yep. The RF thing in the beginning was a hassle, and then I was running the 450 ohm into the coax, the regular coax, and I changed that, so I ran the ladder line all the way to the tuner, and that helped a lot. Some of it could be I'm running the EQ Plus W2IHY, and if I have that thing turned up a little bit too much, that will cause some trouble.
Roger, but that's an excellent test. What I find and what I use now, it's taken me a little while to solve all of my AF and the RF or RF and the AF problems, but I do use a ART preamp. The condition here is a homebrew condenser microphone into an ART preamp into a 3rd octave equalizer up to the tabletop and a 6-position rotary switch to discern which radio, and a toggle on toggle off switch then into the older Yaesu 990. And I have found, I have on the preamp, I have about 10 dB headroom from where the input volume is, or the input level control. And so my test is I will run my mic gain up 10 dB above my normal position, just to check it and make sure I have headroom as far as RF and the AF. Roger?
Kind of understand that. I kind of get that. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I get you. Yeah, I got the preamp. You're talking audio preamp, not an input preamp.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm running a condenser microphone, so it requires. I'm running a homebrew condenser microphone, so it requires a phantom power supply. And for $50, you know, the ART preamp is just an amazing little device that furnishes the phantom voltage for the condenser microphone. Plus, it has. I'm running actually balanced in and balanced out, unbalanced out, but it has the capabilities of balanced, unbalanced in, or balanced, unbalanced out. So it's a very flexible, you know, device, and for $50, it's hard to beat. Roger, Roger.
Yeah, you're sounding good. You're definitely sounding good. So you think I shouldn't touch anything? I'm tempted to press the button here, but as we all are. But I guess at this point, if I'm getting you good audio, I'll probably leave them alone. No compression through the EQ Plus, and not through the radio at all.
From what I can see on your signal, you do have a very good dynamic range. You know, unprocessed audio is usually running about an average of 30% peak modulation. And as we continue to fatten that signal, our average percent of modulation increases. When we get down to about the 3 dB dynamic range, we're probably running about 70% average peak modulation. So it's almost the loudness of your station will almost double when you process to the point of having about a 3 dB dynamic range. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, through compression. You have the ALC, if you run that at between halfway and 2/3, and then introduce maybe about a 3 out of 10 level of your compressor, or a 30 out of 100, you know, just barely engage the compressor, you will start to fatten up that audio. From what I can see of your audio, it looks fairly fat. Roger? You slipped down there to about a dB above my noise level. Try that again.
Yeah, I was saying I'm getting buzz through the monitor, but apparently you guys aren't getting that. You're starting to fade on me a little bit, so did you copy that?
Yeah, I did. And you know, it's amazing. There's so much band noise that as long as your noises are under 20 dB or 30 dB, people aren't going to hear those. You might hear them on earphones as you monitor your station closely, but on out, they're not going to hear that. It's only when it becomes like a -10, -8 that folks tend to realize that you may have anomalies in your audio. Roger.
Hey, Roger that. Maybe I just turn the monitor down a little bit, and I'll be happy with that. This is Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Right Radio Bravo with
Roger, Roger. Well, conditions have changed somewhat, and you've dropped down now to about just a couple of dB above my noise level. So let me say threes. We'll hopefully be on the band next week, next Friday at between 10:30 and noon. So if you get a chance, give me a shout. We are recording our Qso-Vlog, and we will be posting it up on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring you to our Qso-Vlog page, and there will be one Qso marked My Group Air Check 10518 and the frequency 7189. Roger, Roger.
Roger that, Jim. Appreciated. This is Kilo Delta 9 Hotel Radio Bravo. You got Bob in Wisconsin, and we're clear. 73.
Roger, Roger, Bob. 3's in Wisconsin, and that last signal, you were 6 dB above my noise level. So have a good day, sir. 3's. And this is KC9VKV getting ready to wrap up. If there's anybody else that wants a quick air check, give me a shout.